Hi guys, so I wanted to make a rugby video again, and it's my Six Nations team of the tournament. So strap in and get ready. Going live in nearly 1 hour, so I want to get this out before that. It's one I've been looking forward to making, and it's gone through my team. So the team throughout the whole tournament that I feel has been the best. Some players you might not agree with, some you might. I'm also going to show you some interesting Six Nations statistics. Just to give a mention to those who maybe feel unlucky that they weren't mentioned in the team. So I'll get into it immediately. Why not? And here we go. Doing the PowerPoint presentation format again. We're going to do a slideshow presentation for this. So get into it now. There we go. There, make sure I'm recording as well. Yeah, we are recording. So I want to be in the way of my one of my favorite players, if not the favorite. So I'm going to move myself up here and then get this out of the way. Right. So kicking things off at loose head prop, we have Reese Carey, three tries in three appearances. And I thought he was going to get a try against Italy, but he couldn't manage to do it. But he wouldn't have been my favourite player. I always felt he was quite lazy, and the Welsh media said he was too heavy, and he did get into a bit of trouble and a bit of criticism because he was slow, he was unfit, but my God, he proved all the haters and the doubters wrong in this Six Nations. He stepped up big time. The scrums for Wales were actually quite good if you look at it. So most people didn't mention it because France were so dominant in the game, but Wales actually had the better scrums. So if you actually look at it, Wales were dominating the scrums, especially as it went on. When Nicky Smith came on as well. Um, Nicky Smith isn't in the team of the tournament, but he definitely had some influence in the scrums. But I felt Reece carried, he carried well. I think he is part French as well. He's half French. His dad might be French with a name like that. Big ginger head in him as well. He could pass for Irish. But yeah, he was very good, and he really added that oomph that Wales are missing in attack. And as I say, three tries in the total four appearances. That ain't bad at all. Absolute crash ball maniac. He was just a wrecking ball every time he got it, and he also had dominant scrums. That was an area of his game I felt needed improvement, but he's definitely showed up in that. So now he has to get into the team. So that's kicking off number one. And numero two is Giacomo Nicotera in a very dominant Italian scrum for the most part, anyway. Against England, they came up against it, but for the most part, these two lads here were outstanding. And Giacomo Nicotera was one of the main reasons. Italy also had a very successful line out, and that's down to the hooker and the throw. Just FYI, a special mention for the Italian second rows, Andrea Zambonin and Nicolo Canone, and also Lorenzo Canone. So the Canones, and also Andrea Zambonin were very unlucky to miss out on this team. But I just felt there were some inclusions that had to be made. They were just simply too good to leave out. So that's why these two guys get a mention because they were excellent in the front row, and England were decent in the front row, but I felt like these guys gave a lot around the field as well, and Italy were a lot better than England. And I felt that a couple of the scrum penalty decisions, you could have given them either way. I felt like the referee was harsh on Italy in that regard. I'm having a lot of lisps. Italy, the T's are tripping me up. So Italia, I will say it. I'm so worried. But Giacomo Nicotera's like his tackling is so low and strong, physical. Missed a few now, and I was looking through the Guinness Six Nations stats, but he was physical, got turnovers as well, got a try against Ireland. As much as I want to hate on him for it, he was outstanding. It was definitely in a tournament, I will say, where there was a lot of poor performances from the front rowers. There's not an awful lot of good front rowers that you could write home about. But these guys definitely deserve their mention. Carey, because of his tries, just props don't get an awful lot of tries. I think John Hayes had something like one try in 98 appearances, which will just show you how much tries props get. Um, so that's why Carey's in. But Giacomo Nicotera, he just gave a really good polished performance in the scrums. He's a big fella, he's physical, he's built as well. Gone are the days where you've got the hooker that's like a potato with two picks or a beanbag on knitting needles, as my mum would say. Jamie George kind of adds to that stereotype with his physical build, but he plays like an athlete, and I'm a big fan of Jamie George, and I've said it about him before. I think he's a far better captain than Maro Itoje, regardless of what do you think of Itoje as a player. He is a good player. I've never denied that. But his mouthing off at the referee, I'm kind of glad the referees are getting pissed off from him because he's always got the finger out. If you ever look at Itoje, you wouldn't say pull the finger out because he's always got it waiting to go. The ref's talking to him and he's pointing at something else already. And I really don't like that. So I just feel like I should give a mention to Jamie George, who doesn't make this team. Um, but as a leader and a captain, I certainly respect him. I think he's a good guy. He seems like a nice fella as well. So you can even hear the way he was speaking to the referee for England against Wales, Pierre Brousset, and he was very mannerly. But whenever something was said, he was like, "Sorry, ref, what was that for? Okay, no problem," and he'd move away. He wasn't pointing the finger; he just wanted clarification. And later in that game, the referee gave him favourable treatment when Wales were looking to tap and go quick. He was letting England have their huddles and their water breaks. And then we reached Sam was going up and moaning to the ref, but the referee was obviously siding with England because Dowie Lake had behaved so badly towards the ref. Dowie Lake was animated, throwing the hands out. I know Dowie Lake came on as the tournament went on, but that attitude, it's something that's just going to get you in trouble. And England's discipline was shocking. It was really bad. I think they had, am I right in saying, seven yellow cards and one red card? Nine yellow cards if you include that. So that's right, nine. Trying to think how many fingers to get up, but Henry Arundel got two yellows and then was given the red card afterwards. Shocking discipline. So that's nine yellow cards, and that's right, 6 games. Or sorry, no, it's not. It's 5 games. You only play five because you got 6 teams. Nine yellow cards in 5 games. That's terrible. And that's the story of England's tournament. And I'm going to do a breakdown of each team, so I don't want to go too much into this. But Nicotera led very well. He was a good leader. Lineouts were very good for Italy, and that's down to the second rows as well. So an honourable mention to them. But the hooker's throwing has to be on point, and it was. He also was great over the ball and got a few jackals as well. Then we get to Vroom Vroom Simone Ferrari, that big bald head that we've all come to love. Very lucky with that clear out now on Jack Conan, who we see down here, and we get to him. But really good turn from Ferrari. Really good. He was dominant in the scrums against Scotland. He marmalised, I think that was the word that was used constantly. Absolutely folded Pierre Schoeman. And then against Ireland, Italy dominated. Italia were unstoppable. Against England, they came up against a bit of friction, but against France and Wales, they were okay. It was decent enough. They got a few penalties against France. Wales stepped up big time and had a really good impact in the Italian game, and it's good to see Wales get at least one win. And it was a bad way for Italy to end the tournament because they could have gotten 3 wins, and that's the most they'll have ever gotten. But unfortunately, they couldn't do it. They've only managed 2 wins and one draw. That's their best ever form. So 3 wins would have been pretty good out of 5 games. But Ferrari gave them such a good platform to go off, and the Italian front row were utterly dominant against most teams except for England, who were strong in the scrum. But we get to the second row now, and I've included three hybrids, so three hybrid second row slash back rowers, because I think the fact that they're hybrid players just adds to how good they are. And kicking it off with that blue scrum cap we all love. I'm moving myself out of the way to give him his full respect. Sorry, Simone, go ahead of you there for a sec. Your big bald head. Tyke Byrne, what a player. When you look at the Six Nations stats, which I've just had a gander at there, he's in the top 5 for tackles. He's also in the top 5 for jackals. He gets in, always gets his hands over the ball, gets that steal. He's always in on everything. He rarely has a bad game. As poor as Ireland were against France, this man here still managed to have a really good game and managed to get two really good jackal turnovers, and I think one choke tackle. He was so good. He's always good. Doesn't matter who we're playing against. He always brings his A game. And even when Ireland are playing poorly, this man rises to the occasion. Can swap back row, second row. He often is expected to play the full 80 minutes as well. He carries his hands, like the tip on pass he gives is so good. He got absolutely hammered in the tackle from Jamie George when he set up Jamie Osborne's try against England, but the tip on pass was just that good, that we had to score it. And it's because of this man here that Ireland are as good as they are. He just gets us taken. He also has one of the most most line out steals. So anytime he gets up, he steals it. He's just so good. He's a thief. He's a thief in the best possible way. John McCarthy as well, honourable mention for him because he comes through the middle, gets his hands over the ball, and does so well at disrupting the lineup. He did it brilliantly against England, where instead of just wrapping the player up, falling for the ball, and then Ireland get the scrum to them, he was like, I can get the ball, grabbed it, and then placed it back. And I said how impressed I was that he managed to avoid the touchline. So impressive. I moved myself back into the corner where I belong. So there aren't enough hours in the day to say how good Tyke Byrne is and how important he is to the Irish team. British and Irish line always tops the tackle stats. He's there or thereabouts. If he's not the best tackler, he's certainly not far behind. And usually, when you look at the most amount of turnovers, Tyke Byrne is always at the top, if not there or thereabouts. Mikhail Gyar, now he dropped off as the tournament went on because he was playing off the bench. They didn't start him France against England, but every time he's been called upon, he's so good at carrying. His carries are really good. His carries, just to give this big ginger man a shout out again. But Mikhail Gyar, he can play in the back row as well. So another hybrid player. He can play second row, or he can play six, blindside flanker, the same as Ollie Chesham and Ty Byrne. It's usually it's usually that they can play six and they can play in the back row. So blindside flanker are usually bigger and heavier, more physical presence. That's where they can go into the second row because they've got the bulk. An open side flanker, the number seven or number six if you're if you're South African, they typically can't do that role. Because the open side is leaner and more built like a centre. Whereas your back rower now, your blind side can be 6 foot six, 6'7". I have to get that. But Peter Steph the toy, big man, very big man, but can also play in the back row and do it very well. He has seven on his back, but he's really a six. He's a blindside flanker, but he gets through a mountain of work. And having a player that can play that hybrid role is even more important now. As teams are going for a 6-2 split on the bench. Mikael Gyar against Ireland was fantastic. Got man of the match after playing only 50 minutes. That's how good he was. And France haven't used him as much. They've kind of chopped and changed with Thibaut Flamand coming back, who also has been quite impressive. And I feel more so France's forwards did the hard graft, but the back line for France were able to take. And I wasn't as impressed with France's forward pack as I was expecting to be. I thought Anthony Jalonch, he had some big tackles, not necessarily great in the carry. Um, Charles Olivon was good in parts, very good from a line out option as well. Got a try against Ireland and against Wales. I felt like France, a lot of players went, they got the job done. They did what they had to do. But I wasn't overly impressed with their front rowers. Like I was expecting to have either Julian Marchand or Piotr Movaka or both of them in this team. I was expecting to have both because they are world class hookers. They're brilliant. They're really good at carrying. They're physical fellas. They get over that ball and they jackal it brilliantly. They're very athletic, especially Piotr Movaka. Two outstanding hookers, definitely in the top five, if not top three. But I just didn't see enough from them. I wasn't overly impressed with France's props. Definitely not. Dorian Aldegheri wasn't great. Didn't win an awful lot of scrums necessarily. Very unfit, like, and I know it's not easy being a professional rugby player, but he's 119 kilos. He's not the heaviest tight head prop in the world. Doesn't win an awful lot of scrums. And just seeing him going down the ball or carrying, he's so slow. Um, Reggie Montagna did a little bit against Ireland. His first scrum off the bench, he dominated Jeremy Lockman. But after that, when Michael Moon came on, Montagna wasn't as good as I was expecting. And he is a mountain of a man. He's a big unit, but just didn't see enough from him. Jean Baptiste Gros was good in the loose play, but not very good in the scrum. That left elbow, kept hitting the ground. And he's a player I've been very impressed with and really like. He's light for a loose head. He's quite fit. He gets around the pitch well. I was singing his praises when he ran back and tapped the ball down for a goal with a dropout to prevent the try. That work rate from a loose head prop is outstanding, especially for a French loose head that you normally associate with being bigger and stronger. But I think you also have to have that, the fundamentals. I feel like the front row for France weren't brilliant. Their second row and back row got through an awful lot of work, and this man really epitomised it. And that's like, I know France won it, but they didn't play great against England and Scotland. We have to remember that as well. They weren't outstanding against Italy either, and against Ireland and Wales, they really weren't tested. But this man stepped up, so he has to get into my team. I'm a big fan of Michael Guiar, so he's getting in. A player that I didn't mention in my team of the weeks or anything, but a player, another carrot top. Wonder if there's any Irish roots with these two guys, but Ollie Chessum, that performance against England shows against England playing against his own team. That performance against France was outstanding. His engine is incredible. He looks like a big lanky second row. That's the funny thing. So I've got Mikael Gear and Ty Byrne. They kind of look like back row players. Ollie Chessum doesn't have that typical back row look about him. He looks like a big lanky second row. It's just good for getting up in the air and for winning the ball, the high ball and the line out. And the kick restarts, he was outstanding. Like he took the ball so cleanly, even when it went right to the back. Make sure I don't fall off my chair here, but that's an underrated skill. He does all the fundamentals of a forward. But then that try, it was just his second try. I was thinking, run infield, you've cut across to the left and swerve back towards the goalposts. Get under the goalposts there. So the kick is easier for poor Finn Smith. But two tries for a number six ain't bad at all. And I definitely think he's mobile enough to play as a blindside flanker, and he gives England an extra line out option. As bad as England have been, especially against Ireland, against Italy, and against uh, Scotland as well, when they were annihilated by Ireland and Scotland, and they really were. They were well beaten by us and by the Scots. But Chessum has always stepped up. He's always one of the fittest players in an England team that, let's be honest, they don't look that fit. They're always big and they're always strong, but their fitness is lacking. Like I think just after half time, and Ellis Genn just pointed at someone with his hands on his hips, going, I mean, how do you point with your hands on your hips? But he had his hands on the hips. That's me with the hands on the hips, FYI. And then he's pointed, oh, you carry because I don't want to. And then that pathetic tackle attempt on Caelan Doris where he just kept his shoulder tucked, didn't even try. He looked absolutely gassed. Ellis Genge is a player that's really disappointed me in the Six Nations. But Ollie Chessum, like for as bad as England have been, he has stepped up and been good in every game nearly. He always carries, he always tackles a lot as well. Over the head, his handling is brilliant. So maybe there is some Irish roots with the Gaelic football background. And then against France, I think he was the best man on the pitch. I know France won that game, and it was a tight game and a really big moment by Tomo Ramos, and who gets a mention. So we'll get to him. But Chessum epitomised everything good about English rugby at a time when they're not looking too good at all. So now he has to get in. He was brilliant, and that game against France proved just how good he is. Rory Darge is my seven, my open side flanker, and an argument for why open side flankers can't hop into the second row because just a different frame, more athletic. They get around the pitch and they get a lot of jackals, because they're usually shorter than the second row and the six. Like you look at Ty Byrne, Ty Byrne's about 6'5", so he's kind of ideal to play both. He's not too tall for back row, but he's also tall enough that he can play in the second row. I think if you're getting to about 6'3", It's a bit short for a second row, but 6'5", kind of ideal. And the way he gets around, he's so athletic, so he can do it. Chesham quite tall. He'd be on the taller side of it, as would I think Giard's about 6'6", 6'7". Of course, I have to get that in. But athletic as well. Now these guys are all athletic, but tall guys. Chesham being the tallest, I think he's about 6'8". But Rory Darge is kind of shorter, he's about 6'2", 6'1". But so good over the ball, and as much as Scotland are Ireland's enemies in the Six Nations, and there's been a lot of heated arguments over them, been a lot of bad blood and animosity between these two nations. But Rory Darge, really good jackler, really good tackler, and got his try as well against us. He proved his worth, and against England, he was outstanding. He gets over. He's a typical open side flanker, just a nuisance. He got man the match against Wales anyway, and he played well against Ireland, even though we beat Scotland. But yeah, he's just kind of ideal. He gets over that ball really well. He tackles like a machine. He plays the full 80. Um, and as I say again, in a tournament that's kind of been mixed for Scotland. And look, they could have won it in the final day against us, but Rory Darge is everything good about that team. An athletic back rower and exactly what you need in any team. And then at number eight, this is one where I was thinking Ben Earl, because he has carries, the most carries out of any players, so that's impressive. It's exactly what you want for a number eight. But Jack Coleman just rises to the occasion every game. And I feel like he deserves some praise. A lot of people say he's a controversial selection. I never understood that. When he was selected for the Lions against in the tour against South Africa, they were saying, "Oh, a controversial selection." Or when he was brought into the Ireland team first, he always struggled to break into the team. And I was kind of thinking, why is he controversial? Every time I watch him, he's good. you know, the Ireland just have an aversion to picking good players who are quiet and go about their work because Jack Coleman is that player. He's quiet. He has one hell of a mustache. That top lip. We can only dream of having that tash. He's not rocking it there, but when the tash is out, Jack plays well. Jack's a happy boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But I think the stats that really highlight just how good he is and how he goes about his work is the fact that he played against Wales in a game where we were utterly dominant. Like we had most of the possession, we most of the ball. Ireland, yeah, we didn't play great, but Jack Coleman had 18 tackles, two turnovers, two jackals. So Jack got two jackals for Rugby Jackal, who I know will be watching this. And let me know what you think, mate. Hope you enjoy. But he also got one try. He had a try disallowed, and then he got another try. Against Italy, he scored as well. He was he might be a bit aggrieved with this man up here, Simone Ferrari, for a really bad croc roll, which never got called. I highlighted that, but yeah, nothing was done about it. It was a very bad croc roll by Ferrari, and luckily for Jack, he stayed in the tournament and he carried on. And he was so good. He just goes about his work. Doesn't get the praise he deserves, in my opinion, but he's always good. Even against Scotland, where Caelan Doris and Josh van der Fleer rose to the occasion. Jack Coleman still played well. He wasn't their best player, but he's always up there. He always puts in a good shift, and he can play anywhere in the back row. And so he's obviously not. He's like Rory Darge. He's a bit smaller and leaner. More athletic kind of build. Then not saying these guys aren't athletic because they absolutely are. This trio here, they get through a mountain of work, but just that shorter frame as well. And he can play. He's better at 6 and 8. Open side flanker. Bit slower in that regard. I think someone like Josh van der Fleer is better suited to that role. Whereas Jack Cohen's a better blind side or number eight, just because of his carrying as well. So you've Caelan Doris at eight, then Cohen at six, and then at seven, you've got JVDF Van der Fleer. So that wraps up the pack anyway, guys. So we've got Reese Carey at loose head prop. At hooker, we've got Giacomo Nicotera at numero trois. Tight head prop, we've got Simone Ferrari, who's been a beast, a machine of a man. That hit on Gary Ringrose as well. Oof, we all felt the air leaving us. At second row, we've got Tyke Byrne. I've kind of chosen group of people here who can play either second row or back row. But Ty Byrne, brilliant player, can play anywhere, and he can play number eight as well. I've seen him do that. He's a good carrier of the ball. He's got really good hands. So from the base of the scrum, he can pick it up well. Um, just an all rounder really. Then in the other second row, but these guys, as I say, this trio are interchangeable. Any of them can play a blindside flanker or at second row. Mikael Gier, just for his work rate, his carries, his physicality in the tackle and the carry, his handling as well, the ability to get the ball out the back door, his offloading as well, outstanding. Ollie Chessum is at six, a blindside flanker, because of his athleticism, the mountain of work he gets through, the fact that he's another line out option as well. These guys are also really good line out options. And if you check the Six Nations stats, they've some of the most line outs won and the most line out steals. And Chessum just showed how good he was getting two tries, being superb off the kick restarts against France and just putting in a monumental shift like he always does. Rory Darge at seven, open side flanker, just because he's that workhorse, he's that real David Pocock type that just gets over the ball, that makes tackles, has the headband on to protect himself because he's going to be putting his head where people wouldn't put their foot. Got those lovely bicep veins that everybody wants in their back row. That's the thing, you always get an open side flanker with that lovely bicep vein that they've got that really athletic physique. They're usually good at doing pull ups and push ups. They've got that real military style physique. I've played open side before, and I actually really liked it. My favourite position, though, has to be number eight. And in this team, that goes to Wacko Jacko, Jack Conan. One hell of a mustache, as I've said. So that alone gets you into my team. But he's also a lovely guy. I met him when I worked in JD Sports in Dundrum Town Centre, and he was a lovely fella. Had a really good chat with him, and he made time for me. Never made me feel like I was wasting his time. So he's a lovely fella as well as being a great player. Gets through a mountain of work and never gets the praise he deserves. Just goes about it. And I feel like he deserves to be in this team. He got two tries. He could have had more. Had one disallowed against Wales and then scored another one. Didn't sit around feeling sorry for himself. So, no, Jack's getting into my team, and that wraps up the pack, guys. So, let me know what you think. I think this is one hell of a pack. Getting to the back line, and I was kind of thinking Antoine Dupont didn't have his best tournament, in terms of I'm going to move myself there to give the honours to my player of the tournament. But Dupont looks bigger in this picture as well. He's a short frame man, but he looks mighty in this picture. Certainly looks bigger than Le Beep Beep down below, who we will get to in a sec as well. But Dupont and Matthew Jalibert, you got to think of combos, and that's combo intertwine, like how people work together. And I feel like even though Antoine Dupont is a Toulouse player and Matthew Jalibert is a Bordeaux player, and people were talking about, will this man click with this man? And that man down the corner of the screen, I've tried to block him out, but Fabien Galtier, one of his shades, has just made an appearance there. One of his monumental spectacles. But I felt like Dupont and Matthew Jalibert were outstanding. And this man as well. Like all these four backs that I mentioned. So you see that I only have one French player in the pack, but I've got four of them in the back line because these guys just made everything look easy. Teo Atasogbe, by the way, is unlucky to miss out on this team because he was very good and he's a player who I've been singing his praises. But the thing is with France that I really like, and even though they weren't great in the final three games, you could say, they did everything they had to do to win. And when you've got a big forward pack as well, there's nothing nicer than knowing that you've got three playmakers who can just make something out of nothing. How many times did we see a loose kick by anybody and then it was fly hacked by Tomo Ramos up the pitch? That left footed kick he made for Louis Bielbieri's second try against Ireland. That was just effort and desire. I'm going to hack my foot at it and hopefully get something on it and then we'll score from it. And they did. They bat the ball backwards. I felt like England and Scotland really tested France in that area, and that's what we should have done. Put the contestables up. France don't like going, like I said about Ollie Chessum, he loves catching that high ball overhead. France don't like doing that. They really don't like going for the high ball, but with ball in hand, there's nobody better. And the thing is, if one of these guys especially this trio here, because as good as Louis Bielbieri is, Antoine Dupont is like having a scrum half and a fly half on the pitch already, which frees up Matthew Jalibert. The way Dupont steps out of scrum half and plays the ball, he's like a fly half already because he kind of shuffles across, sees what's in front of him, then throws a pass. Jalibert kind of takes a wider stance, so he's kind of free to play like a fly half and a centre. They're kind of freeing up each other so they can play a hybrid role. I also find the fact that Ramos is such a great kicker. And that's another thing. Like Ramos can play at fly half or a fullback, but the fact that he's so good at place kicking, this man here takes a lot of pressure off these two guys. And France are funny like that because they typically like to play a fly half that doesn't kick. Roman Ntamack didn't kick. You'll see their teams in the past. Damien Troy, the big fullback for France, who could also play a fly half or centre. He was a big fella, but he had a massive boot on him as well, and he could take the kicks. You had Morgan Parra, Jean-Marc Toussaint, Dimitri Ashvili's probably one of the best scrum half kickers that I've ever seen. Georgian born, but French, French educated, and naturalized citizen. But Ashvili was one of the best kickers off the tee that played scrum half that I've ever seen. Usually with most teams, it's the fly half that takes the kicks. France typically don't like to do that. They're a bit unorthodox in the way they do those things. But when you've got someone as good as this man Ramos to take that kick at the end of the game against England after all that pressure and all that controversy as well, all the arguing and the argy-bargy when I told you start getting involved with Michael Guillard, there's a bit of push and shove afterwards. In a game where France hadn't played their best and England had really taken it to them, to have the ice cold blood in your veins and the composure to take that kick just shows how good Tomo Ramos is. So I feel like it's important to kind of mention not just the combination at 9 and 10, but also with this guy here. France have three playmakers that can just create something out of nothing. And even though it wasn't Dupont's best tournament, his worst game is another player's world class best game. He's good even when he's bad. That's what I say about Antoine Dupont. He's good when he's bad. When you're bad, you're good because he might make a couple of mistakes, and he had like I've never seen him play as badly as he played against Scotland. That pass behind his in goal area where he just flung it forward. You just don't associate him with those mistakes, and yet he can create something out of nothing, like he did against England. How many times did we see him box kick the ball, and then Ramos, BLBRE would be on the receiving end, pick it up, and then they would go for a try. Matthew Jalibert for me was the best fly half. Against Ireland, he just hit that line. He's quite a physical ball carrier for a fly half. He crashes onto it like a 12, and he's got deceptive strength. He's deceptively strong. He also hits the line brilliantly. He's got a really good chink. He's very fast, and it's an underrated skill of his, but then he also can flick a 50-meter pass. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but he just tore through teams. And if anyone remembers towards the end of the game where England were playing France, Jalibert took off through the smallest of gaps and he just creates something out of nothing. Last year when England were playing France, and England actually beat France by a point in another really tight game. So this contest is getting very tight, but Jalibert was very unlucky, and that man creeping in there, Fabien Galtier, dropped him from the team. I felt like he got the French backline going really well. It's just that they couldn't use it. It speaks more about them than him. I thought he was really dangerous, and now he has a Champions Cup under his belt. No, I think he's definitely nailed down his spot. I always thought he was a better player than Roman Ntamack, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I think he's a bit overrated. I've always thought Jalibert was a bit of a better player, but needs to step up. There was also Anthony Bello, who Bayo. I don't know how you. I think it's Bello, but he was at Toulon, and he's kind of gone under the radar completely. There was also Kelvin Gord, who's another fellow who's coming through the ranks. So France just keep producing these guys non-stop. It's a conveyor belt of talent. They've also got Maxime Lucu, who can play scrum half. Demi de Malay. I love the way the French say scrum half. Demi de Malay, half of the scrum. kind of like how we describe things in Irish, but melee is scrum, in case you were wondering. I just feel like also having Nolan, Legarek, like it's a ridiculous amount of talent that they have. And these three players here just create something out of nothing all the time. They were outstanding. Jalibert got himself a few tries as well. He got one against us from a really bit of poor defending by Ireland, but also a great line that he took. And he just gets the back line going so well. I wonder, did he snub Simon Zebo for that interview afterwards? He said he couldn't speak in English and Zebo wasn't buying any of it. Rugby Jackal, I know you're not the biggest fan of Simon Zebo, but thought that was a funny moment. Zebo's dad is French Martinique, so I wonder how thick Cork French sounds. Well, actually, I don't need to wonder because Rowan O'Gara are gonna voulez-vous, parlez-vous français. Um, I thought Simon Zebo was just. I thought he could have done the interview in French. Remember that interview with Sebastian Chabal, who snubbed an interview. They asked, "Can you speak English?" And he's like, "No, well, in France, we speak French." In fairness to Chabal, the only reason he was doing that was because when he asked, could they do it in French, they said, "No, we're in England, so we speak English." So credit to Chabal where it's due. You know, he wasn't being an arsehole. Well, he was being an arsehole, but he was justified in being an arsehole. So that combination of 9 and 10 is definitely the best of the tournament, and that's the reason France won because these guys were just able to find someone all the time. You know, they were brilliant at finding space. Dupont, the fact that he takes up so much space and can play as a scrum half, he's always looking to snipe, he's looking to go, he holds onto the ball, he kicks very well, which I've shown some people who don't believe me. He can play fly half as well, he has done, he's played centre as well. Um, the fact that he can play so well and take up so many positions frees up Matthew Jalibert, and I think it's the reason why France always look like they've got an extra man. If anyone's noticed that, they always look like they've got an extra man, and Jalibert did the rest. I feel like Dupont made Jalibert look even better than he already is, and he's a very good player. So, we get to the centres, and both these lads have played at 12, but I feel like it's important to give them both a shout out. So that's Tommaso Menoncello, who was Italy's best player, and people were saying, is he Italy's all-time greatest player? Sergio Parise still has that title for now, but I feel like this guy's only 23 years old, so I feel like he'll take that title if he doesn't get injured and touch wood, he stays fit. But he just tears through gaps so well. And I was watching parts of the game. I didn't see the whole game when Italy played against Wales. I know the Wales tore Italy up and they were 31-0 up at one stage, but Menoncello got them firing. He just hits gaps. He's very physical. He's also he's in the top five turnover stats as well. So he gets over that ball and jackals really well. He's got that physical presence like a back rower. Remember, I was saying a seven is like they have another build like a centre. So it's kind of like a flanker and a centre have the same kind of build, you know, that athletic, muscular physique, like Jonathan Davies that you'd associate with him, or Jamie Roberts, you know. Brian O'Driscoll as well was also very good at getting over the ball, and Jacqueline. Menoncello just hits the line so well. He was outstanding against England, and many people said about Menoncello on the pitch, Italy don't beat England. You know, and that's definitely true. Him and Nacho Breaks a great combination. Nacho cheese. Feel like Nacho Brex, Juan Ignacio Brex, has a real Aztec looking face. You know, he looks like an Aztec warrior and he plays like one, which frees up this brilliant player to do all the beautiful stuff. But Brex is also a very good player, and you know, unlucky to miss out because I was talking about that combination partnership. But I feel like Menoncello was the best player in that Italian team and gets them firing. And I feel like if you don't have him in the team, it's more of a loss than Brex. No disrespect to him, he's a brilliant player too, but an honourable mention. But I feel like Menoncello is what gets the Italian backline firing. You know, he's just that good and he's always dangerous. You can't take your eyes off him for a second, which Jack Colvin nearly found out after he tore through the gap. I don't even think he had his best game against us, but he still was dangerous. And that's like what I say about Antoine Dupont. This guy, even when he's bad, he's still good. But the reason as well that Nacho Brex doesn't get into the team is because my man of the tournament, Beef Stew, the Belfast Bulldozer. He's either the Belfast Bulldozer or the Bangor Bulldozer. Um, he is a mountain of a man. He's 6'4", over 17 stone, but can also do things like chase down Marcus Smith, which is not easy. Um, I think he was our best player. I think he was one of the best players of the whole tournament, if I'm being honest. To come into the team after being out of the team, struggling to break in, never really nailed on as R12. You know, you always felt like Stuart McCluskey was going to be in the team, but he was going to be taken out of the team. And Bundy Aki came back in and had a really good game against Scotland off the bench, which was good to see. But I feel like the fact that McCluskey knew that position was his own, you know, I feel like Farrell probably said to him, "This is yours now. Take it with both hands. Take the bull by the horns here, Stew." And I feel like he could wrestle a bull to the ground. He's that strong. He was outstanding. So you talk about jackal turnovers from Menoncello. McCluskey's also he's in the top 10 of the most jackal turnovers. He's also in the top 10 for the most run meters, the most post contact meters, and the most defenders beaten. He was so good. He's also got 7 try assists. You know, he just always gets that arm free, that NFL style throw to this man just below, who was also outstanding. That was brilliant. You know, the fact that he rides the tackle, he spins. I've got a swivel chair so I can do. He rides the tackle so well and gets that hand free. And very impressive. And he didn't get any tries in the whole thing, which just tells you as well how good he was because he was a facilitator for our tries. So 7 try assists in 5 games. You know, and he just made us look better. I still thought he had a good game against France. He just wasn't fed the ball enough. You know, Jack Crowley fed him the ball a lot more than Prendergast did. But that's another discussion for another day. I felt like we didn't use him enough in that French game or the Italian game. When he's given the ball, he thrives. He's a big physical presence. Give him the ball. And when he was given the ball against England, he burst through gaps. He beat defenders. He sat people down. He got steals. He ripped the ball. He's physical. You know, he got a really good choke tackle against Italy where he just got in over the ball like a second row. Like Ty Burr would have been proud of that. And he just got the turnover. He was so good. And I'm really happy for him. 33 years of age. He was 23 making his Ireland debut. And since that debut 10 years ago, he only managed something like 20 caps. So I feel like he's definitely nailed on for the World Cup. He won't have much years after that. He's not dying or anything. It's just his playing career, you know. It's unusual for a centre to make it to about 36 or 37. But hopefully, you know, the longer he's around, the better. Bundiaki's getting on now as well. So it's definitely going to be good to have these two in the World Cup squad, but I feel like Beef Stew, as I'm calling him, because he is beefy. Look at that physique, those big shoulders. Got an athletic build as well, though. Like that chase back to take down Marcus Smith was just out of this world, you know, so good. And against Scotland as well, he got that pass like for Balakoon. Those two linked up really well. The Ulster man, stand up for the Ulster man. He just whipped it across. Like I was talking about how proud Ty Byrne would have been of the choke tackle, but Antoine Dupont and Matthew Jalibert would have been proud of that pass off his left hand as well. I think he's right-handed. Most people pass better off their right to left than their left to right, and it was left to right, and he flung it across. He's just got such a good skill set, except for kicking. That kick against Italy after we got the knock-on advantage, and Holly Davidson sorry, decided not to call it back. I was like, what? I think he's right-footed though as well. It was his bad foot, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And we'll cut him some slack for that one because he was so good throughout the whole tournament. He was brilliant and definitely my player of the tournament. But this man, definitely a close second. Le Beep Beep. Louis Bielbieri, small little man in the red scrum cap. I think the red scrum cap makes him look extra childlike, and that's about all that's childlike about him. Because when he plays, he's brilliant. You know, he topped the try scoring stats by some distance. He got 4 tries against England. He scored in every single game of the Six Nations. I think I was checking the stats. He's got 9 tries in 5 games. That means that he's scored more tries than he's played games. He had 25 tries in 26 games before the England game. So now I think, now, yeah, if my maths is correct, that's 29 tries in 27 appearances. So he's some player. He's really doing a great job. Or sorry, yeah, no, because it was 26 appearances, 25 tries. He got four in the England game, which would have been his 27th appearance. So yeah, 29 tries and 27 appearances, which is some strike rate as well. And the reason he was able to do it so easily is because of these guys. That's why this trio feed him the ball so well. Teo Sogby had five tries in 5 games. Ain't bad at all either. Like I was saying, most people are better at right to left passing. I was talking about this with Fozzie, who I coach with, and he was saying that a former professional lad from Samoa that he was speaking to said, pick your fastest and strongest winger and put them on the left wing. Just for anyone who's wondering, um, typically the right winger is a hot stepper bird. And if you want to look at the stats to kind of prove that, look at the New Zealand team that won the 2015 World Cup, where you had Julian Savea, the big bruise and ball carrier on the left wing, wearing number 11 on his back. And then on the right wing, you had Nihi Milner Scudder. Nihi, Nihi, Nihi. What a name. Michael Jackson would be proud. Where did that guy go? Because he was really good. Did he hot step his way off the face of the earth? Because I think he was so good at stepping that he would have stepped off the face of the earth if the earth was flat, which of course it's not. No flat earthers welcome here. But no, Milner Scudder was really good at stepping off his right foot or any foot, really. He was just that good. And I think he got that skill from playing basketball. But Julian Surveyor was just route one, bash through you, speed, finisher as well. And that's the thing. Louis Beale has benefited from being a speedster. So he's obviously not the big physical ball carrier like Julian Surveyor, but he's quick. And these guys will all put in great kicks for him. So DuPont's brilliant box kicking. Johnny Bear's great hands and chip kick in behind. And Tomo Ramos as well. These two guys are better at the open play kicks. DuPont's better at the box kick. And you see that try that he got against England where Dupont puts the ball into acres of space. This man doesn't need much space to finish. He's just away, you know. And there's also a try where Ramos put a left-footed kick in behind. And you just see that right to left pass and they work it well down the left-hand side. And that's why Labit Beep has benefited from some really good French hands. And then Teo Adesogbi, just because he's a right winger, he's not getting as many. He also slotted into fullback effortlessly as well. So an honourable mention for him. The whole French backline really got going. I was a bit disappointed with Yoram Moefana. Nicolas Deporter played all right as well throughout the whole thing. He was in my team at round one. I've just been busy, so I haven't been able to make a team of the week every week. But Deporter's kind of dropped off. But I know that they put in Brow Barre or Brow Barre. I know he's got BLBRE and then you've got Brow Barre as well. And Emile Gailleton. You've also got Barassi, Luca Barassi as well. Is it Luca? I think it is. Or Yannick. I know his second name is Barassi anyway, and they've been changing things up in the centre, so it's kind of been hard to nail down the centre position. They've been trying new things. Poil Barre, we call him the beep beep number two, numero deux, numero deux. France have kind of been experimenting in the back line, and I mean, Gailleton was really good as well. He can play centre and fullback. He's kind of like your utility pack. But BLBRE, what do any good wingers do? They score tries, and this man scores a lot of tries. He's always dangerous when he gets on the ball. You can't take your eyes off him for a second. And once the ball is chipped in by these guys, this trio of really good facilitators, he's away. Once that ball is dropped in behind, BLBRE is gone. You're not catching him unless you're Big Stew, who can catch anybody with those big long arms and that speed that I didn't know he had. A man that I did know had speed was this man, Robert Balakou. He came into the team, and I'd seen a bit of him, and I thought to myself, he's a good player, but is he world class? And he proved he is. He proved he's the man for the right wing position. Tommy O'Brien was very unlucky not to make this team, and also unlucky to be dropped after the first game because I felt there were a lot of players that were thrown under the bus for that game. You know, Prendergast wasn't dropped after that game. Actually, one Prendergast was the good one. Kane Prendergast had a good game and he was dropped. He had a decent game, not a brilliant game, but he had an all right game and he was dropped. Whereas Sam Prendergast retained his position after missing seven tackles. Now he did make 13, but he was a human speed bump essentially for most of the game. Didn't give us a lot in attack either. But I felt like when Balogun came in after suffering with all the injuries he had, he was good with that overhead catch that we should be nailing as Irish players because Gaelic football is in our blood. We should be nailing the high kicks. Teams like England have been using it against us. And I kind of feel like this man really used it well. He's great in the air, really physical in the tackle as well. The fact that he knew when to come in off his wing and shut down the players. He made a brilliant read against England where he shuffled in from the right wing to the left wing and smashed Tommy Freeman into touch. Him and Tommy O'Brien were a really good combo when you had Tommy O'Brien on the left wing and Balakour on the right wing. 14 on his back, 23 or 11 on Tommy O'Brien's back. They were really good combination players. And the fact that O'Brien plays on the right wing, he was kind of drifting. I feel like they really interchanged well. They knew when to stay and when to go, which is something that I don't really know much about as I've only played on the wing once and I'd never do it again. Um, you're sorry, I'm skipping ahead there. We go back. Sorry, just got to get back into that. So Balogun really read the game well. He wasn't just good at attacking; he was also good at defending. He ran brilliant lines. He took on players against England. What I liked is that he backed his pace, and he took on Henry Arundel, who's known to be one of the quickest players in the game right now. Um, and he might not have gotten past him necessarily, but he got the arms free, linked up with Tommy O'Brien. He got a try against Scotland as well after a brilliant pass by Big Stew. Those players linked up brilliantly, and then the American football style pass for his opening try against Italy was really good. And the step, the way he kind of weaves in and out, is really impressive. I really like him. I think he's a very good player, and he linked up well with other players as well. That's the thing. But also, he got off the ball. He got a really good jackal against England. The ball came loose, and Kieran Frawley hacked it down the field. Sorry, no, it was Jamison Gibson Park hacked it down the field and then got a brilliant turnover. Like he did everything well when he was asked to tackle. He did. He came in off the wing, even when there was an overlap for England, and he smashed the player out. So there was an overlap there. If it was quick hands, England would have scored, but he shot in off his wing and shut it down instantly. And he got three tries. I thought he was a bit quiet against Wales, but and a bit of fault for that Reece Carey try, because he kind of stood off, kind of palmed him, and then let him go by him. Tyke Furlong was getting a lot of stick for that, but I feel like Balogun should have read it a bit better. People were saying Tyke shouldn't get done for pace by another prop, but I think Carey is no ordinary prop. He certainly was in form anyway. He was finding his way to the try line, that's for sure. Tomo Ramos was the best kicker by a mile. He rarely misses, no matter where it is on the pitch. Just another shout out for him. I know I've given this trio a really good mention already, but at fullback, he takes the ball well. France aren't the best team I've ever seen under the high ball. They don't like the catch. They certainly don't like going into the air for the overhead catch. But he just settles this team down so well as another playmaker. I think he's not the most physical fullback you're ever going to see, but he's certainly good at taking the overhead catch when he needs to. Big moments. He has fumbled it a little, but he takes it. He gets them firing. He's got one hell of a right boot. Also a left foot as well. Like he put a brilliant chip kick in behind with his left foot for BLBRE to score against England. And then he hacked the ball through with his left foot to score against us. Well, this man scored against us. He just knows how to find his wingers. You always see that with Ramos. He gets the ball and he looks to find a winger and link up with them. That's the thing I really like about him. He looks to team up with his wingers, whether that be usually it's BLBRE, but he can do it with Adesogby as well. Jalibert is also really good at that, and Jalibert put Adesogby in for a lovely try against us in round one. So that's my back line anyway. Uh, Demi de Mallet, Antoine Dupont, and then his ami, Mathieu Jalibert. So Toulouse and the Bordeaux man, and that kind of tells you the story of the French team. There's another Toulouse man and then a Bordeaux man there with the red scrum cap, the red of Toulouse. The team is made up mostly of Bordeaux at Toulouse because they're the best teams in Europe. Um, and Bordeaux surprisingly beat Toulouse in the last Champions Cup. But these guys are really gelling well. There was talk that Johnny Bear didn't get on with the team, that he felt he was better than Entomac. I would agree with him on that, but that him and Dupont might clash, because they play for rival clubs and also their personality, their type of player as well. They like to be the leader and the main playmaker. And French teams in the past can be very temperamental. But these guys, they all linked up brilliantly. They all played like a really good team. And they took the pressure off other players. And look, when you got a winger like BLBRE, you're always going to get tries. I felt like for Ireland, Big Stew, he was just everything you want in a centre. The offloads out the back, the big NFL pass, the brilliant left-handed pass for Balakoon's try against Scotland, which he finished excellently as well. Real wingers finish just to get in the corner, but keep the feet up. 12, Tommaso Menoncello, simply because he's the best player Italy have produced since Sergio Parise. He just carries that team so well. So he's a generational talent and he's only going to get better if he keeps going this way. It's funny because he's 23 and McCluskey is 33, 10 years as senior, 10 years. But McCluskey has taken his opportunity with both hands, and for me, he is the player of the tournament. So a big shout out to Big Beef Stew. And Balakoon slotted in well. If he can keep that right winger position and keep playing the way he is, we've got some really good attackers. People say we don't produce the athletes. I give you this man. I give you this man. Tommy O'Brien as well. Jamie Osborne. We are producing the athletes. They just need to be given the game time. I thought Jacob Stockdale as well was unfortunate because Ireland had a collectively bad performance against France. When Stockdale was brought in against Wales, I thought he was very good. He was physical. He juggled with the ball in the air, but then he grabbed it. He got a brilliant try, a really good read by him for his try against Wales. I feel like there's some players in the Ireland team that no matter what they do wrong, they can do no wrong, if that makes sense. They're always going to make it into the team, even though they're clearly very bad. I felt like Andy Farrell gave in to peer pressure by dropping Sam Prendergast. I feel like if there wasn't that peer pressure, he would have stuck with them, even though he clearly wasn't good enough and wasn't getting the best out of the brilliant backline that we do have, which cost us the bonus point against Italy. But again, Jack Crowley not getting that kick to touch. But does seem funny because he does feature on my bench. So going through this bench, many might feel that this man, because it would have been an all-Italian front row were it not for Reece Carey being as good as he was. But this man here, Danilo Fischetti, big physical character, really muscular for a prop, really well built. And I know props are mostly muscular, but what I mean is lean and muscular. A lot of props are built like this man, Big Joe Hayes, who nearly did his mum Rachel proud. I was there saying, do it for Joe's mum. Joe's mum, Rachel, who was Irish. Don't know what part of Ireland she's from. She sounded Dublin, but she's kind of got a bit of an English twang. But I reckon Joe will want to be declaring for Ireland after that. And we could definitely use his beef. But Danilo Fischetti, just a big physical presence, really good in the set piece, got that intense stare going on. He was definitely up there, as one of the best loose heads in the tournament. But I felt like Carey, given the extra tries for Wales and a Welsh team that struggled to fire, he edged it for me, because Carey came into the team and carried very well, as I say. But Fischetti against Ireland, against Scotland in the opening round, it's a front row effort. It's three players working together, and he was excellent in that regard. It's just for me, Carey also brought a lot to the scrums and the fundamentals of being a prop, and then he got three tries. But Fischetti, very unlucky to miss out on the starting place. And as Tim from Egg Chasers always says, and one channel that I really recommend you check out if you love rugby content, Egg Chasers Rugby. blonde guy from Manchester, but posh Manchester, so not the Manchester that you all know and love. But he's a really good rugby brain, and he knows an awful lot about different players. He's also very respectful, and yeah, he just brings a really positive energy to rugby, which I really like. But Fisketti's scrummaging, his physicality in the tackle, his carrying, in the tight corners, he's not the big speed ball carrier that Reese Carey is. Like Reese Carey has wheels as well, and he's the chubbier fella, so you're not expecting him to be as quick as he is. This man is more muscular and does the tight physical stuff well, gets a few jackal turnovers as well, which is impressive. And Italy were very impressive in the front row, bar the game against England, but I feel like there were a few 50-50s that definitely went England's way. Genge was hinging a few times, and I thought he was lucky to get the penalty his way. So England and Italy were the dominant front rows, but it still wasn't enough to get them first or second in the tournament, which we got. Um, sorry, I'm after clicking that again by accident. But we're getting to the subs anyway. So my replacement hooker, and I'm just going to say it again because I've gone with Giacomo Nicotera for his physicality, his turnovers, and just how well he led with the line-out throws. But Dan Sheehan was brilliant. Ireland had a 96% win. I think it was actually 97% line-out success. And that's down to the hooker mainly, but Ty Byrne as well. Ty Byrne was so good in the line-out, and he was also so good in the loose play. And, that's why he gets in. He also got line-out steals, but the hooker has to throw the ball well as I do with my hands. Dan Sheehan didn't have the best opening game against France, but he scored against England. He was our only forward to score against England, and he scored a try as well against Scotland. A really good, genius piece of play to break off the ball and just go through that gap. He's world class, kind of like what you say about Antoine Dupont. Even when he's bad, he's good. He has the speed of a winger, the kind of physique of a centre. He's really good with the ball in hand, and he hasn't been necessarily at his best, but even at his worst, it's most people's best. And as I say, he's good even when he's bad. He got tries for us when we needed them. He's always a threat with ball in hand. Needs to not jump though, trying to hurdle tackles. He got away with it against Australia, who will definitely be very aggrieved at that decision when the Lions played against Australia because he was pinged for immediately and Italy tackled him back. um, so Australia will definitely go, you fucking done a study there, you can't. You shit can't. I don't know how it wasn't called a penalty when he played against Australia and did that. TAS Analytics has more on this. We go live to TAS Analytics. But Dan Sheehan, his line-out throw was being questioned, and he sorted that out brilliantly. Ireland had one of the best line-outs. Our scrum, not great, definitely shaky. It was very good against Scotland, now I have to say, but against Italy, with this man bearing down, just his little lips there, we get the arrow. Against Giacomo Nicotera and Simone Ferrari, we got blitzed, we've got issues in the front row, especially with Andrew Porter getting injured. But I felt like Tom O'Toole stepped up. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of him going to loose head because he was never the strongest scrummager from what I saw at tight head. But he stepped up and he was decent at loose head. He misses out narrowly as well. Just not enough games. There's a few players in here that don't have enough games for me to say he should definitely be in. And Fischetti led the way, in the pack for Italy, as did Nicotera and Ferrari. They gave a really good platform for Italy going forward. Their set piece was excellent. The lineup was really good as well. And their scrum was so powerful. It was just against England they kind of suffered, which is why this man, Big Joe, gets in. He showed Ellis Genge how to dive on the ball. The way he leapt on it, picked it up, then popped it up. Like he's the bigger, heavier front rower. Genge is the one who's supposedly good and loose, and Joe Hayes absolutely schooled Ellis Genge on how to pick up the ball and dive on a loose ball and then pop it up. Really good piece of skill by him. He played big minutes as well against Scotland. He played into 66 minutes. He played big minutes. And at one point, I remember Nika Amushakeli saying to Scotland, if there's another penalty in the scrum, whoever infringes is getting a yellow card. I don't care what it's for. So I feel like Joe Hayes, they say that the tight head prop is the anchor of the team. He's a beefcake, but he also played really big minutes, and Ellis Genge look absolutely wrecked. Your loose head prop is typically, as it says, the one of the loose who's built more lean, like this man here, and gets more carries. The tight head prop is typically the beefcake, the big hefty fucker in the team, the heaviest man on the pitch who holds up the scrum because they're taking the brunt of two men on one person, because when you see it like this, um, see this, my ring finger here, that's the tight head, and then that's the loose end, my other ring finger. I need to clip my nails back. But the tight head's taking the brunt of two people, so he has to be stronger and have bigger shoulders. And I felt like Joe Hayes did that very well. England just couldn't use the platform that their forwards gave them. England dominated France, not only in the scrum, but also the ball. They absolutely school the usually very physical French team in the scrum and the ball. France were woeful in that area. Um, and that's why, like, as I was saying, Dan Sheehan gets in as my best replacement hooker. Like, Dan Sheehan is world class, but I thought Giacomo Nicotera was just really good. It was much more important for England, for Italy, than Dan Sheehan was for us. But Dan Sheehan played very well, got a few tries as well, and I was disappointed with France's front row. Like Piano Movaca and Julian Marchand are definitely two of the top five hookers in the world if you're making a dream team. And I was very disappointed. I was very underwhelmed with them. I felt like they could have given a lot more than what they did. You know, um, France's back line, their second rows and their back row really are what got them over. But yeah, England definitely relied heavily on Big Joe Hayes, and Will Stewart. If he was there, I've no doubt that it would have been stronger. Yeah, it just wasn't great from England in general. They were poor. They had a very poor tournament, but look, it is what it is. Trevor Davison looks like a big Geordie plasterer, doesn't he? And when he came on, he's a hefty fella, but don't know if he just can't play the big minutes. But Joe Hayes did himself proud. He can definitely be proud of that performance. So good on you, Joe. And if you fancy declaring for Ireland, we could use your bulk in the back. Replacement second row now, and I've gone for a 6-2 split. That's right, 6-2. 6-2. Shado, if you're Irish. Daffyd Jenkins. I can't say anything really in Welsh except for a Kimbrew and bit. But Daffyd Jenkins and this man, Alex Mann, for as bad as Wales were, they've been shockingly bad. These two lads definitely get a mention. So I was talking with Six Nations stats. These two lads are the top two tacklers in the whole competition, and that's tackles completed. Alex Mann has 87 tackles. And Daffyd Jenkins, I can't say his name without a Welsh accent. Daffyd Jenkins. It just has to be said with a Welsh accent, doesn't it? Daffyd Jenkins is on 84 tackles. I managed to say it without the accent. So 84 and 87. Right, like that's incredible. So just to put that into context, if you were to make 90 tackles, so he's only three tackles off 90, right, that would be 18 tackles a game, if my maths is correct. Yeah, because five nines are 45, and then 45 by two is 90, and then that'd be 18. So on average, he's getting about 17 tackles every game, which is absolutely huge. Alex Mann. Daffyd Jenkins isn't far off, so these two guys have got through a mountain of work. Alex Mann just needs to learn to not start on people that are twice his size, like Eben Etzebeth and Ellis Genge. Etzebeth got a red card. Genge got nothing. He was very lucky to get away with that deliberate headbutt on Alex Mann, who's still got a few pimples and acne there, showing you how young he is. And it is a very young Welsh squad. Look at that baby face and big juju lips and Daffyd Jenkins. Daffyd Jenkins. It's just such a good Welsh name. You have to say it with the accent. He was only 21 when he was made the captain. So a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but he does deliver. It's just unfortunate that he's in probably the worst Welsh team of all time, and that's no exaggeration. They've been woeful. Aaron Wainwright's been another big presence, but these two definitely get in. Nicolo Canone and Andrea Zambonin were very unfortunate to miss out on this. Charles Olivon, as good as he is, I feel like he just didn't. He wasn't as good as I was expecting. So I feel like these guys definitely deserve an honourable mention, as does this man Ben Earl. I always feel like English lads get a hard on when they talk about him. They're always like, "Ugh." Every time that he gets the ball, they seem to all get a hard on for him. He looks like he's got one there with the hand. He tops the carries though, which is exactly what you want from a number eight. He's always very, I think, overly enthusiastic. There's a knock on, he's there, yeah. And you're kind of going, okay, relax there, Ben. Also, as Irish roots, maybe that's why I'm picking these two guys because I'm being biased. Yeah, I don't know where his Irish roots lie. I know that Joe Hayes' man is Irish, but Ben Earl, I don't know how far back it goes, but his enthusiasm, his carries are very good. He misses quite a few tackles now, and I've said that before, but he gets over the ball, he jackals well. I'm doing the jackal every time, but it's for rugby jackal. It's for you, I promise. But he's so good at getting over that ball, and he's also really physical in the carry. He got a try against Wales in the opening round, really good positioning by him. He got a really good try against Scotland and played quite well, considering that England were outmuscled and outmatched. I'm losing my voice. Just outplayed completely by a much better Scotland team, who seem to be relishing the opportunity to play England now. He really adds a bit of positivity to a very poor England side and can play in the centres as well. He just loves getting the ball in hand. And I feel like these two guys are two positives that have come out of a very poor England side. And Ollie Chesham has to be the main reason, because he's one of the best players in the team. He's definitely risen to the challenge. But these two guys as well deserve an honourable mention, as does. And I talked about the combinations, like so the combination between 9 and 10. I was looking at a lot of players that just missed out in this team. Kyle Steyn has the most defenders beaten the South African Glaswegian. He beat 26 defenders, which is very impressive. But I just felt like he wasn't very he wasn't very big for the game against Italy. He was quite poor for that game, and then against us, he went missing as well. He was decent against Wales. He was excellent against France and England. He was brilliant in those two games. But as I'm going for a 6-2 split, I'm going with scrum half and a utility back. And Jamison Gibson Park missed 5 tackles in the opening game against France, but since then he's been playing like a man possessed. His kicking is brilliant out of hand. That turnover that I was talking about by Robert Balakoon, he got the turnover. I said it was Kieran Frawley at first. It was Gibson Park who got the ball, hacked it through, and then got in over the ball like a flanker. Even though he's one of the smallest men on the field, he always rises to the occasion. Quick thinking by him as well. He got our first try against England, and then he was thinking quick again and set up a brilliant loop and pass for Balakoon's try, which got us in the right places. He always seems to get us on the front foot. I was watching him warming up when Leinster played Leicester um, in the Champions Cup not that long ago, and the speed of his passing, like just when he gets the ball from the ground to someone's hands, it's just gone like that. Him and Dupont, I think, are two of the best scrum halves in the world. Gibson Park was definitely like he showed his old form when he was at his best. He was close, like I'm saying, he wasn't far behind Antoine Dupont. And I know that might be a bit of an exaggeration to some people, but no, I think he's that good. He's really just been such a key part to Ireland's performances. I'd like to see Craig Casey and Nathan Doak getting a bit more game time, but if he plays like he did in every game, bar the French game, I think he definitely will be in with a shout. He's definitely going to be in the World Cup squad. He's outstanding. He gets us firing on all cylinders. He just is whipping the pass across. Is tracking back in defence. You always see him covering back, making tackles on men 3 times the size of him. He's fearless as well. He might have missed a lot of tackles against France, but he puts himself in those positions to be boshed. Oscar Jagu ran at him and yes, ran over him, but he's brave. He puts himself about and he's one hell of a player. He's excellent. And as they say, he's probably, I'd say he's on a par attacking wise with Antoine Dupont because he gets us going and puts us in the right field position all the time. He's played on the wing for us before when we've had an injury crisis, and he always does what he needs to do for the team. He's outstanding, and he runs great support lines. There aren't enough good things to say about this guy in this video. I could say so much more, but Jack Crowley is getting the 23rd spot on the team, so he's getting the final spot. And I know people might say, well, Kyle Steyn has the most defenders beaten. There are other players as well, Tommy O'Brien, Jamie Osborne. You could say Teo Anasogby, who was very good. But for me, the reason why Jack Crowley is getting in the team is because it cannot be easy coming into the side after Johnny Sexton, an Irish legend, has just left after we have been knocked out in another quarter final of a World Cup. When I think of Ireland, I almost get a semi. Some African fans, they love to rub it in. But we have beaten them. We've a better head to head against them in the last 5 games, so take that. But I'd rather a World Cup, to be fair. But for Jack Crowley, like to have to come in after that, the disappointment of being knocked out of another quarter final in 2023 and a legend of the game retiring, it must have been very demoralising to then come into the team and then be told you're not good enough, be dropped out of the team, have a young fella come in and replace you. Because don't forget as well, Ben Healy was the number one fly half at Munster. Jack Crowley was his protege, like he was coming in behind him. And because Ben Healy's off field antics and just his bad attitude, apparently, so I hear, laziness, turning up late to train and being a bit cocky and arrogant, so we'll send him to Scotland instead, where they allow that sort of thing. Did you hear that Stuart Hogg's in more trouble again? Great rugby player, but a grade A wanker, an absolute arsehole of a human being. But we won't drag this video through the mud. Jack Crowley has stepped in, despite, as I say, not being the first choice of Munster. It was kind of thrown on him, trust upon him, as they say. Um, and the same thing happened with Ireland. A 38-year-old Sexton retires, and then a 23, 24-year-old Jack Crowley is told, right, you're in. You have to replace this legend, and you have to do it well. That's daunting for anyone. And then he has a few bad games. Kieran Frawley comes in, who must also be daunting for coming in, coming out, then being dropped. Then Sam Prendergast taking over, who has not proved himself. Let's just be real, he hasn't. Um, Crowley has been in and out and shaking all about. It has to be said though, there have been games where I'm like, you've got to grasp this with both hands. You've got to take the bull by the horns, like Big Stew has done, and he didn't do it. Like the game against Italy last year, where we only beat them 22-17. Jack Crowley missed 3 kicks and only got one. I think he might have even missed 4 kicks, and he was very poor off the tee. He wasn't 100% off the tee this Six Nations, but he was much better. And just to put it into context, like, so when Sam Prendergast played the whole game against France and against in the first half against Italy, we were behind on the scoreboard. Since Jack Crowley has come into the team and started a fly half, which he started in 3 games against Wales, Scotland, and England, all the way from Scotland, England. Frankie Boyle. If anyone's ever seen that video, it's hilarious. Frankie Boyle, all the way from Scotland, England. But if people want to say that Jack Crowley has played easier games, he hasn't. Playing England at Twickenham, playing against Scotland on the final day when Scotland have their heads up, their confidence was at an all-time high, and even when they're playing shit, their confidence seems to be at an all-time high. They don't seem to ever run out, surprisingly. But um, despite all that, Crowley came in, took the bull by the horns, got us firing against England. We got a bonus point win at Twickenham, and we beat them by 21 points. We doubled their tally. 42-21, we beat them in a game where I don't think a lot of people thought we were going to win. They thought England are getting a bonus point win here, easy. But Crowley stepped up. He missed 2 kicks, but he took, I think it was 6 or 7 kicks. I just have to get that. I always keep slipping up on it. There were 2 very poor misses. They weren't easy kicks, but he should have gotten them. A player of his caliber, as we always talk about. He's a good player. And it's how he missed one of them where he skewed it way off to the left. But to recover after that and to still take his kick and then keep going, he got about 6 anyway. So yeah, 42 points would be six tries because six sevens are 42. But he did miss two kicks badly. I think there might have been penalties though. So he got all the conversions. But he got some that were from the touchline and he missed some very difficult kicks. But most of the easy ones he nailed. And people kept saying that his kicking wasn't good enough. They were looking for any reason, basically. It was a Leinster dominated media, and they kept saying that Prendergast has better kicking than him when questioned about his defence. Jack Crowley was only kicking at 74%, and Prendergast was lower than that, 71%. He missed a kick almost bang on in front of the post, blasted it wide. And he missed another quite easy kick as well. Even I would have gotten it. And if you don't believe me, check out my YouTube shorts. I've gotten kicks that were even more difficult than that before. Though it wasn't as high stakes, just messing around and training. But it wasn't a difficult kick. It shouldn't be a difficult kick for someone who was practicing that every single day of the week. You know, they should be nailing those in their sleep with their eyes shut. But Jack Crowley stepped up, did well. You know, that kick against Italy, we could have gotten the bonus point win. And that was in a game that was hard fought where Italy really brought it to us. This guy really brought it to us here. And so did Menoncello. But Crowley kicked it dead. That was such a stupid mistake, you know. And other than that, it was a flawless performance from him when he came off the bench against Italy. And I think he kind of showed how he could get the backline firing better than Prendergast could. But that mistake just really let him down. But since then, he's seized his opportunity. He got a try against Wales. He missed two kicks, only two, but people were saying, oh, his kicking's terrible, it's not good enough. But he's so much better defensively. You know, he gets down, he's braver, and he's better attacking. He just fires those passes. He used Stuart McCluskey, like I was saying. He used him the way he should be used. He took the ball to the line, put him into caps. Wasn't looking like he was afraid of contact. Like I've seen Prendergast go off the ground like this, like he's afraid to take the contact. Whereas Jack Crowley seems to relish the opportunity to take it in, take the big hit, but get the pass out. You know, he kicked as well, very well out of hand. From the tee, I don't think he was as bad as people are making out. I thought he was much better than Prendergast was anyway. And he just looks like a much sharper attacker, you know. And he got a deserved try. He was very good against Scotland. He only missed one kick, and that was from the right hand touchline. He got one from the left hand touchline, and I would say had a pretty flawless game, bar that one missed kick. So definitely feel like he deserves his place. And like I was talking about with combinations, the 9 and 10 is a big one. For France, it's huge, and they really showed the importance of it. I think this was the second best combination. So that wraps up my 23, guys. That's my bench there. Number 17, we've got Danilo Fischetti. Number 16, the replacement hooker. We've got Dan Sheeno. Number 18, replacement tight head. Joe Hayes. I feel like one of the announcers. Number 19, replacement second row. We've Dafford Jenkins. Number 20. And number 21, the replacement back rowers. We've got Alex Mann with the top tackles in the whole competition, which is exactly what you want from your back rower. And Dafford Jenkins only 3 tackles behind that. Another back rower, but number 8, mainly I'd be using him. Ben Earl with the most carries. It's exactly what you want from a number 8 is carrying. You want someone who wants to carry the ball. And then a replacement scrum half and utility back, Jamison Gibson Park, the everywhere man. Always seems to get Ireland on the front foot and in the right areas of the pitch. Great work rate from him as well. Such quick hands. And a little pocket rocket, if ever there was one. The term pocket rocket was made for Gibson Park. So number 22, normally number 21, replacement scrum half, but we're changing things up. And then number 23, utility back, Jack Crowley, who's been in and out of the team, you know, in and out like a fiddler's elbow. But finally, he's nailed down that spot. And in the 3 games he started at fly half for Ireland, we won with a bonus point. We got the 5 points. With Sam Prendergast in the team, we were behind every single time. You know, we got level against Italy when he was on, but he was poor. He just didn't get the back line fire, and he looks afraid of the contact. And his place kicking is nowhere near good enough, as well as his obvious frailties in defence. So I feel like he needs to go back to Leinster, develop there. And I feel like Jack Crowley, Kieran Frawley, and Harry Byrne are our fly halves going forward. So that's the team anyway, guys. Let me know what you think. I really enjoyed making this. So get out of that now. I hope you enjoyed it. I have to go live now anyway, so I'll chat to you in the next one, guys. See you soon. I'm just in time for my live video. See you.